They're telling me that it's recorded and I have to stand behind this thing today.
It'll save your voice.
It will save my voice. It's a little rough. I'm not used to talking, so 6 hours of talking and then going out and having a great time last night. Did you all have fun?
Yes.
Everybody? Yeah, that's why everybody's so quiet today, or is it because we're accountants? Both. It's because of last night. So we'll get started. I'm sure Christina will be back in any minute. She's going to join us as well. But I'm Dina from ASAP Accounting and Payroll. I think there may be a few people in here today that I didn't see yesterday. So maybe I'll just give you a little spiel. We're an accounting and payroll firm originated in Telluride. Our main office is in Telluride, Colorado. So we work in the resort markets as well, doing accounting. We do have offices in Golden, Colorado and Durango, Colorado, but a big workforce that works remote across the country. I work remote from my home in Rifle, Colorado. So excited to be here and share my LiveTrust knowledge that I stumbled upon because one of my clients in Telluride that I did their small business accounting and QuickBooks for came in and said, "Hey, will you do my LiveTrust accounting too?" And I said, "Yep, let's do it." And so fortunately, they were a bigger company and had a lot going on, so I was able to learn really quick the whole entire process and system and have gained several LiveRes clients now. So we just have a lot of experience that we're happy to share with you. Joining me today is Joelle from my team at ASAP, and Justin from LiveRes, and Christina from LiveRes as well. She is here. She snuck in. And so this particular session is designed so that we can all work together to talk about month end in a roundtable type. I wish the room was set up so we were all facing each other, right? We want to have discussions. What works for you? What doesn't work for you? What advice do you need? What pain points do you have? Maybe somebody else does it a more efficient way, which I'm happy to share how I recommend the way we do it, but I also would love to learn from you because I know that other people have found better ways to do certain things, and we would love to learn how you do things as well. So month-end roundtable. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, but half face this way, the other half facing in, and everybody could listen.
Yeah, we could have a debate. You guys could say one thing, and then this side could say something else, and then we could go back to that side. Yeah, it just could make it easier. That's a great suggestion. It might be better. I mean, some people in the back might be talking and you'll have to crane your neck or what have you. It is being recorded, so I'll try to repeat anything that's said so that we'll capture everything. Or we have a microphone we can bring to you if you want to record yourself talking. He has it. So anybody offhand have a question we want to start with or a thought on month-end processes? Do you want me to go over what I feel like month-end best practices are? And maybe that will spark some questions. Yep. Okay. So month-end, before you pay out your owners, I recommend clearing your liability detail report completely, making sure your bank reconciliation is done in LiveTrust. Right? Then you're going to review all of your owner statements, process your owner disbursements in this order. This is how I would do this. Process your owner disbursements, process your manager disbursement, pay out your tax authorities, and publish all of your statements in that order. The long and short of month-end best practices. Anybody have anything I missed? Somebody do anything that is different than that?
We go over this one.
Yeah, want me to go a little slower? Clear the liability detail report. Finish the bank reconciliation. Review your owner statements. Pay your owner disbursements. Process your manager disbursement. pay your tax authorities, and then publish all of your stakeholder statements. So you're gonna publish all of your owners. I don't care if they didn't have any activity that month. You're gonna publish them. You're gonna publish your manager's statement, your vendor statements, and your tax authority statements, because once you close that period, you don't want any transactions to post to it again. It's closed. Any thoughts on any of that? As an FYI, we do at our ASAP booth, just right around the corner, have a best practices handout that lists all of these. Yep.
So whenever you are paying out, you said pay out your owners first. I have found that if I don't pay my vendors, it shows up on the owner statement as a vendor's payable.
Okay. Are you in North Carolina? Yeah. So that's a North Carolina or cash-based system specific. So you see it a little bit different than most.
I have to do it in reverse, right? 'Cause I pay out my manager and my vendors, I pay out taxes, I do all of that first and my owners last.
So what she's saying is, should I pay out my vendors first? Because she's in North Carolina, if she doesn't pay out the vendors first, her owner statement show a payable to the vendor that doesn't show the actual payment to the vendor. My answer is vendors should be paid weekly. It's not a month-end best practice. Your vendors should be paid weekly, but you're correct. That should be part of your process. So in my mind, your daily, weekly best practices are already done also. That's finished. You've done all of your deposit grouping. You've paid your bills. You know, all of the things that you want to complete daily or weekly are already done. And then you're just doing just the month-end tasks. But you're right, the vendors should be paid. If you're gonna, somebody asked me recently for an order of what you should pay your stakeholders at the end of the month. Like, is there a certain recommended order? It's probably one of those like 6 of one, half dozen of the other situations, right? I do think it should be vendors, owners, manager, tax authority. Sometimes our taxes are due before we pay ourselves, so you can't go in that order, right? But in general, it flows better if you do it that way. Sometimes you find when you're paying the owners or you're paying yourself, there was a mistake on a reservation, and when you update it, it changes your tax authority statements. So if you pay out your owners and yourself, then your tax authorities are probably all accurate and correct, ready to go. Good question, though. All right, who uses the disbursement button on owner statements compared to bill pay? Sorry, I asked 2 things. Who uses the disbursement button? Who uses the bill pay? Who doesn't do owner disbursements because they don't deserve any money? All right, so there's some, benefit to each. So it's good to figure out what works best for you. I love the bulk bill pay. It's very efficient. I can pay a lot of owners in a couple minutes using bulk bill pay. I love that. But I told you before we do the owner disbursement, you want to review your owner statements, right? So if you're in there reviewing them anyway, and you're like, oh, this looks great, why does it hurt to just hit disperse funds right then? It's easy. There's just a button. You click. You choose how they're paid. You have to have some sort of cheat sheet that tells you whether your owners are paid via ACH or if they need a manual check, unless all of your owners are paid the same, because paying it with the disperse button, you don't get to use the owner profile payment method filter, right? That's going to tell me automatically how they're paid. So there's some benefits to each. Totally up to you. Anybody else use a different way? Do something different? No? You guys are a super talkative group today.
What ways do some of you who have not responded as far as the bill pay or the bulk pay or disbursement, what other methods do you guys use in order to, go through those processes so we can hear some of the other options or other methods that you guys use?
I somewhat use both, but
There, the owner statement balance is always the balance you want to go with, so you're correct to doing that. I have seen that before too. And so I typically have two tabs open where I have my owner statement dashboard where I can see all of their balances on one screen, and I have the bulk bill pay on the other screen, and I'm just glancing at the totals as I go through, because it's still faster for me to do it that way. But I have seen that also, and strongly recommend submitting a support ticket if you see a discrepancy. I don't want to be the only person posting or sending in those support tickets. They want to hear from all of us. Yeah.
Just for, what I do is it saves time for me, is I go in and I review the owner statement, I disperse it, I publish it, it's done. And also, when I go back to the main area where you can see all the owners, I can see, yes, everything's done, because it'll say it's published, 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 published. So if I forgot something or I needed to go back for whatever reason, it'll tell me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I do it. I don't use the.
I think that's a great workflow. I do want to ask, I should repeat everything she just said.
Was I quiet? I'm sorry.
No, it's because they want it on the recording and they can hear me in the microphone. So what she's saying is, as she's reviewing, she's found it to be very efficient to hit the disperse funds button on the statement and then publish right away. I am curious, that did bring up a question in my mind. Some property managers don't want to publish until their owners actually have been paid. So do you guys have any experience with that? Like, is it your owners know that when they see that, they know how much they're going to be receiving within the next day or two? Is that what works?
Yeah, yes, they know that, sorry. I'm hearing my echo. They know that they'll get sent out that day or the next day. So I've never had any negative feedback from owners at all doing it that way.
How do you pay your owners?
Right now, it's by check.
You cut a check for every one of them?
In the next year, I deeply hope to go to ACH payments.
Great.
Yeah.
Can we talk about ACH payments?
Yeah.
And kind of what anybody is, I hate microphones, just anybody who has figured out an ACH payment that they like using and what you guys would recommend, anything that you guys are like, this is tried and true.
Yeah, wait for the mic, wait for the mic.
I would highly say do not go with Wells Fargo. They do block payments, so every time you book every single person, all you ever get recorded in your system is this one huge payment. ACH through Chase, just their regular business pay, it will do every single line item and it shows you every single payment individually. It's so much easier to keep track if you're doing it that way. Plus, they're an easy system to edit.
So I have several clients that through their bank, they set up an ACH option and they go into the bank and manually enter the amount for each owner every month through the bank themselves. And several of our clients do it that way.
It's a good way to double check your entries too for how much you're paying because you're seeing it multiple times. It's a good way to double check your entries because you're seeing it multiple times.
Anybody else have any feedback on ACH and their experience?
Does anybody use ACH other than this Chase? Yeah? Yeah? Do you just do it directly through your bank like I said, where you go into the bank, you've set it up through your bank, you go into the bank and manually enter each amount?
Yes, that's
Both of you
exactly
do,
how
yeah.
And what bank do you use?
South State.
South State. So it's something local to your area? What bank do you use?
Bank of America.
Okay, so more National Bank also offers that service.
Does the job.
Yeah, I do, we like to run what we call an owner disbursement report, and you can set it up in LiveTrust as a saved report, which we can talk about earlier, where or we'll talk about later, whatever time of day it is, where you can run an inflow and outflow. You'll hear me talk about these a lot. This is my favorite LiveTrust report because I can set the filters to give me whatever information I really want, right? And so you'll use a inflow outflow report for the day you pay your owners, and make sure that you're you're filtering out for disbursements and bill payments for just your owners, and it's going to give you a report of all the payments that you've processed in your system with these exact amounts. So if you do set up your bank for your ACH option, you can use that Excel spreadsheet, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. And then when you're done, if you have your sum, you can confirm, like we were talking about, that the sum of all of those ACH on your owner disbursement report matches the sum of your ACH in your bank. That is what's going to clear your bank, is that total, not individual transactions. It'll be the total of all of them. And so in your cash register, you want to make sure you group them together into one group. Yep.
That's actually what I was mentioning before. There is differences between banks. Like if you do it through Wells Fargo, it gives you a total sum.
Okay.
That's what's clearing. If you do it through Chase, it's individual totals
Interesting.
for each payment. So you do get to verify multiple times against it.
Okay.
The only limitation with Chase is that you can only do $100,000 a day.
Okay.
So if
That's-
you're doing more than that, you have to break it up into multiple days to pay out your owners.
Thank you for clarifying. I've never seen that. Every instance where I've seen it, that's been grouped together, but that's great to know that Chase does it a little bit different. It probably would make the reconciliation a little faster if you don't have to group those all together.
Try to track individual payments is a little harder.
Right. Trying to track individual payments is harder. Rich, did you have a question? No? You're putting a bid up. Any other thoughts on owner disbursements? Questions on reviewing your owner statements? Anybody have any challenges with reviewing owner statements, or any suggestions, things that you see to watch for, you want to give advice? Any pain points? Yeah.
Just wanting that notes section on the owner statements to be able to tell owners what's going on. Because sometimes there are things that there's no charge, and if there's no charge, there's no place to put anything that you want the owners to know. So that means, for me anyway, it means another
Email.
An email, exactly.
So like a
So-
public notes section on your owner statement
Yes,
would be something you would like to see?
yes.
Okay.
And I've heard a lot of other partners say that
Yeah,
too.
absolutely. I've heard it a few times too. Yeah. Yep.
No, I'm getting my extra subs.
Well, I used to run a gym, so there you go. The legacy statement system was so much better, had so many more features than the current LiveTrust system. So if there could be an emulation of that, that would be great.
What specifically did you love about the legacy statement?
Being able to attach actual vendor
Invoices.
statements to it,
Yep.
that they could just click on and see the link.
Yep.
And then
Okay.
the notes section. Having something that can go directly to every owner, and then having them that's just individualized things for an item, a line item, is
Yeah.
a great way to do it.
Awesome. Any other pain points? Things you love about the LiveTrust statements? Yeah, Rich?
Come on, Rich, tell us what you love about it.
So yeah, I think bringing up what you did yesterday regarding the new feature on the LiveTrust statements is awesome. I know my homeowners are going to love that. So
Awesome. So LiveRes just implemented a new feature for the owner statements. If you go into your preferences, or the little gear icon in the bottom left of your LiveTrust screen, you'll see a new option to include a summary. I wish I could like verbatim tell you what this says, but it's like a summary of categories. And so if you select that option, then at the very bottom of the owner statements now, it will give you that month's category summary and a year-to-date category summary. So if your categories are set up in a way that makes sense for your owners, absolutely turn that on. They will love it. Great new feature. Thank you, LiveRes.
I don't think everybody's awake yet. Does anybody have any month-end questions on their own personal month-end processes or procedures? Any questions at all? I guess everybody has it down packed.
How do you do your manager disbursements?
Yeah, good question. I know you know. Come on, tell us how you do your disbursements.
Well, I'm not fully using LiveTrust yet, so
Oh.
I'm not the best option to ask.
Anybody else?
So you were in the boot camp yesterday, and I did a fair amount on the manager disbursement. I love doing manager disbursements. It's probably one of my favorite things to do in LiveTrust because I get to pay the managers, right? That's what we do this for. And they actually have a great report and a very good summary for doing the manager disbursement, but I find people don't know about it. And so if you don't use that feature, you could just be saying, oh, I see this sometimes. Oh, I ran a report and it said I made $10,000 in commissions. I'm going to transfer $10,000. And I ran another report and I made $5,000 in cleaning fees and I'm going to transfer $5,000 in cleaning fees. And then I also maybe made, $750 on concierge services, so I'm going to transfer $750. And they don't actually process a manager disbursement. Don't do that. That will cause a big problem for you. You absolutely want to use if you're going to do it in the most simplest form, click the disbursement button on your manager's statement and pay yourself what you're owed. The total, one time, one transfer, what you're owed. And then hopefully you can figure out how to break it out into the right categories into your QuickBooks file. Yeah.
So can you run, before you do that, can you run the report to see how it breaks down and then transfer one lump sum? So, for example, QuickBooks, if you do want those itemized in your GLs, would run the report and then just disperse the money in the different GLs manually then from that point?
If you do transfer 10,000 and then 5,000 and 750,
Sorry, if you transfer all of the money.
all of the money at once.
And then disperse it into the categories.
I haven't looked to see if this new category summary is at the bottom of the manager statement too. If it is, maybe that would be a good way to figure how to break that out. But just so everyone here knows, I absolutely recommend using the bill pay for the manager disbursement and then clicking on the payments tab, finding your payment, and getting your report that way, because that gives you the best summary of what you're owed by category. And you'll be more accurate in your accounting. Yeah,
I have an actual question for you, because you came in using LiveTrust, correct?
I came in using LiveTrust.
With your client, that's how you started with?
I started with Latitude
LiveTrust.
38 doing LiveTrust several years ago, yeah.
Okay, so you never used like the QuickBooks connector?
I did not use the QuickBooks connector, and I have heard nightmares about it.
It is a nightmare, but okay, then that was my question, thank you.
Okay.
I want to mention, I use QuickBooks. I'm a QuickBooks Pro Advisor. I use it every single day. I love QuickBooks. I'm a big fan. I'm sorry if you use a different operating accounting platform. I do really love QuickBooks. It is not built for trust accounting. It is not. And so if you're trying to do your trust accounting in QuickBooks now, I'm sure you're doing your very best, but absolutely get LiveTrust. Absolutely. No question. LiveTrust is built for trust accounting. You cannot do trust accounting in QuickBooks. I've seen people do very creative things with their trust accounting in QuickBooks, and it worked for them until they needed to, they got to a size where they needed to actually be accountable for this money they're managing in a better, more effective and efficient way. Only on owner statements. So Justin just told me that the category summary is only on the owner statement. So it would not be on the manager statement. You would want to do like an inflow, outflow report for the manager and include your categories and your filters so that you could see what that disbursement breakdown was by manipulating the Excel file from that report. Just go to the bill payment and do your manager disbursement there. It's so much easier. Any other thoughts on the manager disbursement? Who's including their channel taxes and your tax authority payments that are sitting in your default tax authority statement? Is anybody taking the time to separate those funds on the default tax authority statement into the correct tax buckets? Yeah, I see a couple nods. That's fantastic. Make sure you're doing that. I do see people don't realize that that's happening, and they're just basing their sales tax payments on what's sitting in the specific tax authority buckets. But the default tax authority are taxes you've collected or have been passed through to you from like Airbnb or through your next packs, something like that. And they're fixing this so that they're going to be or can be mapped to the correct buckets. But up until this point, you probably have a balance in that default tax authority bucket, and you want to make sure that you're putting that into the correct tax authority statements before you process your payments. Does anybody have any recommendations here? Suggestions? Thoughts? Yeah.
Can I face this way?
Of course.
Just for discussion's sake, I mean, sorry, going back and forth. Should I hold it?
Of course.
Okay, so, for us, the tax authorities, like, we don't pay our vendors through LiveTrust. We do that through our accounting, or our operating account. So, the tax authorities, there isn't a check that's being written to those tax authorities.
Okay.
So when things fall into the default tax authority category, it's not a big deal for us because it all is going into transient room tax, which then gets dispersed to the county and the state and the city. And we have 4 different room tax percentages that we have to in Cannon Beach, Oregon. So that isn't for us the default. Like, do you see, a question for you then, I mean, do you see there isn't a specific reason for us to take what's in the default and separate it out? Because for us, it all kind of goes in the big bucket
How do you post your tax payments?
in LiveTrust.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know off the top of my head because I'm on the spot and I can't think and talk at the same time.
So if I understood you correctly, you're paying your tax authorities out of your operating account.
Right, so it just, those pay to us. The tax,
So you reimburse yourself,
yeah, we reimburse manager,
like
yeah,
an adjustment or expense, something from the tax authority to the manager.
yes.
And do you clear each one of those? Do they end up at
Yeah.
0? But all of your tax authorities in LiveTrust?
That's the goal, yes.
That is the goal.
That is the goal.
Yep. You do, when you close your month, all of your tax authority statements should say 0.
I think it's what we were talking about yesterday, where it might be redundant or it might not be the best way to do it, but it's the way a lot of us have been doing it, like paying out of the operating when I know I could do it in the trust. But I feel more comfortable doing it in QuickBooks where I can, write a check to that specific tax authority and know that that's dealt with the way I want it to.
Yeah.
So I run the sales cycle itemized tax report
Okay.
for the month.
Okay.
And then I've got 3 different counties kind of that I have to run that for, and so I see what the taxes are. And then I go into my individual tax accounts. I've got the Macon County occupancy, the North Carolina sales, and the Jackson County occupancy. And I see what those balances are. They're always short because I've got the default tax authority from the channel taxes. So I create an adjustment from the default into the appropriate tax to make it where it should be, and then I just disperse it and make a check payable to the tax authority that way.
Okay, so you look at like the regular sales tax as it's collected on your sales cycle report, and then you deal with the channel taxes in LiveTrust and base your tax payment off of the LiveTrust numbers that are on those tax authority statements.
Yes.
I think that's fair. I like it. You have to be careful if you're just using LiveRes's reports because those totals do not include your channel taxes. So you want to figure out what those are in another way. LiveTrust has that information for you, and so you can do it all of your reports for your sales tax in LiveTrust. But I know some people really like those sales cycle reports, and you can run the sales cycle report with the options filter selected so that anything that's in a channel tax option also shows up, and you can add the 2 together. But If you're in an interesting location where Airbnb maybe gives you part of the taxes and not all of them, it might be a little harder to calculate doing it that way. Yeah, Rich?
So that's my question, how is everybody handling the Airbnb tax? For us, they submit a portion of it and we have to come up with the remaining balance, right? And we figured out how to get that cash. That's not the issue anymore, but how are you guys doing it? And I know it depends on state by state. I totally get that. In the state of Illinois, where I'm from, obviously we're coming up with the remaining balance and submitting that. Now before, we were just kind of duplicating, which kind of sucks for us, but we were just taking every short-term reservation and doing the 11% and sending it to the state. And so we were duplicating the tax, obviously, that had been taken and submitted on behalf of Airbnb. But for Airbnb in the state of Illinois, they take everybody as a lump sum in the state and submit it to the state. So there's no tracking purposes, and it's hard for us if we ever got audited. We don't know how to handle that, right? Hopefully we never get audited, but as I'm saying, so how do you guys handle that?
Any ideas? Anybody have any? How do you handle your Airbnb? If they give you a portion, they remit part of it and they're giving you the rest for you to remit, how do you handle that? Anybody have that situation in here?
Oh, yeah. I don't know that I'm articulate enough this morning to actually, I might have to talk to you later, one-on-one, just because it's complicated. It's unnecessarily complicated because like the state is online, but the state of Oregon now actually, it's house by house, but you have to gather all this information about here's the gross that you have to pay the tax on, but then you have to go through individually, okay, these individual reservations were Airbnb reservations, that means that Airbnb paid the 1.5% state tax, but not on these other reservations. So there's a lot of extra effort, feels like, with Airbnb because you've got to separate it out. This stack is now non-Airbnb, this stack is Airbnb, you've got to join them together for the gross totals. But then it's completely different for us for the county. The county wants all the information, so all the totals for the county is on a spreadsheet, but then the city wants pages, so you manually have to write out all the information for all the houses. So it's a, I don't know if that's answering anybody's question, but it seems way too labor intensive.
Christina and Justin, do either one of you, I've heard rumors, this is gonna get better, this Airbnb tax issue, that they're working on a way to make it not so labor intensive.
I do know Airbnb is going to be redone-ish. I don't know when we're doing that, but we're gonna have to change some things with Airbnb for sure. And yes, taxes is one of them.
It's on their list of improvements to come, and I've gotten confirmation of this too. I just don't know the details of what that looks like. I will say they did already, so if you don't know this, they did already create a way so you can be very creative with your line item mapping for your Airbnb tax option, so that you can say when this reservation comes from the channel Airbnb, the taxes are going to be going to this tax authority, not the default tax authority. You specify what tax authority it goes to. And so that does really help in this process you're talking about. Exception, if you have properties in multiple locations, you still have to do it manually. Because you can't specify this location does one thing, that location does another thing. I've seen this in Crested Butte. Airbnb collects and remits every tax for Mount Crested Butte and only the state tax for town of Crested Butte. So property managers in Crested Butte can't do that because their locations, it depends on where they are. No
Very
fun.
frustrating.
It is a little frustrating. It's just labor intensive. Sometimes, I don't know, it's fun. To me, it's like a big giant puzzle. You end up with this Excel sheet, and when you're done, you're like, I balanced. and I get excited and do my little happy dance, and it's great. But it is labor intensive. It takes a while to do. If you know an Excel whiz, your life can be made easier, and flow outflow reports can be made easier by using those with filters that work for you. So play with the filters, play with the reports, use those for your default tax authority or all of your tax authorities, and get your Excel whiz over there and like, how can I make this faster? Because there are ways.
And even if you don't have an Excel whiz, there are a lot of free things available online to get Excel training. LinkedIn has a lot of them, and it's really, really helpful. And I can tell you, once you understand Excel and can manipulate it, it's probably going to make your life easier too.
YouTube has tons of this.
Yeah, oh yes. YouTube is a great, I always say YouTube everything. Don't know how to do anything, YouTube it, because they have everything on there, for sure.
I guess I should say that. Like, if you're in this class, you're obviously doing accounting. If you're not an Excel whiz, you should probably do some of these things. You will love being an Excel whiz once you've taken these classes and learned how to use that as a tool to make your life better.
Rich, we heard you make a noise. Do you have a question?
He's like, I don't want to be an Excel whiz. Excel's dumb. Any other thoughts on tax authorities? Any thoughts on the liability detail report? I skipped over that completely. I personally like to clear that weekly, so I try to just leave it in my weekly best practices, right? But I did mention that you want to make sure before you start this month end that is clear. You want your liability detail report to be clear before you pay your owners. Because what's going to happen is you're going to leave some stuff because it's a pain in the cheeks and you don't want to get to it today, right? And I can't handle this guest, I can't collect this money, I can't whatever. And then it builds and builds and builds and builds, and then someday you're like, oh, I'm gonna have to do this. And you break it out and you start updating those reservations to clear those balances, and your owners have been paid and your statements are published, and you end up with a bunch of reverse transactions on owner statements. And then you spend a week answering owner phone calls because those are confusing. So make sure they're clear now. It'll save you a lot of time talking to your owners. Any thoughts? Nothing? No? Great. Reconciliation questions? Go ahead.
It was totally off topic.
Okay.
And I just wondered if this gentleman had any, he seemed like you had questions about so this is off topic. Would you rather, is
No,
there
go
like
ahead.
a end of
Go
like
ahead. Well, this
general
is-
free-for-all?
This is, the whole class is supposed to be a general
This is
free-for-all.
about free-for-all. Are you in the process of transferring from Legacy to LiveTrust?
Yes.
Do you have issues?
I have issues with the fact that I have data still back from 2015, 2016 that I'm dealing with that I can't clear out of liabilities yet. So I'm processing all of that and moving forward. I'm not even ready to start in January. I came in to see how everybody else is working with it and realizing that a lot of the systems that I'm used to have disappeared now in LiveTrust that came out of the legacy system. So it's one of those things where we want to move towards LiveTrust, but I have better control now than I do moving to LiveTrust. So it's a bit of a concern.
I think when you understand it, you'll be really, I'm not saying you don't understand it, but I think once you're through it, when you're on the other side of it, you'll be really happy, even without those. Like, I used the legacy system for years. I mean, since 2009, I mean, long time. So even all those years of legacy, I'm really happy with LiveTrust. It simplifies. It makes it efficient. It's much more efficient.
Yeah.
So it'll save you time once you're on the other side of it. So
Yeah.
if that helps, little encouragement.
Yeah, I
Cheer.
came to this company within the last 3 months. So I'm still also trying to understand all of theirs from a walk-off. So, yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of digging to find what has been done, what hasn't been done, and everything else. So.
Sounds like a really cool puzzle.
It's a big one.
She says with a
I do love this stuff. And I can be real with everybody here. ASAP Accounting and Payroll, we use a few different property management softwares, platforms. I personally, LiveTrust was the first, and maybe that's why I personally love it. I think it's fantastic. It does, in the most simplest form, reconcile your stakeholder balances. So you as the manager are in charge of this money. You have to, at any given moment, know where all of those funds belong. Maybe a portion of them belong to you as the manager, but most of them do not. And LiveTrust is going to help you keep that reconciled so that you know exactly where all that money belongs today and every day going forward. And so maybe I make it sound like a lot of work. It's not. Everything I've talked about yesterday, today, going forward is simple. Trust accounting is very simple. You have a bucket of money, and inside of that bucket are 5 smaller buckets, and the money goes between those buckets. And that's it. And so using a trust accounting platform that allows you to reconcile it so easily and see those buckets at a glance is so beneficial. Super, super beneficial. And I'm happy to share more about that if anybody is curious. I'm happy to share. I do like it. And I am weird, and I do like accounting, but shouldn't we all like accounting? We're all sitting here, right? It's fun. And we found out yesterday I can talk about LiveTrust for 6 hours straight. And maybe not even touch on everything I wanted to tell you.
And you use the word easy and fun all the time.
Good. I like that. I also really like puzzles. So sometimes, you're presented with a puzzle and you get to solve it, and that's what some of this is. As you make the transition from another platform or the legacy system or QuickBooks to LiveTrust, you'll be presented with several puzzles. Any other questions on month end? Any thoughts? Any suggestions? No? You're all good? What time is it?
11.
We have 15 minutes. If anybody would like us to come sit with you, Joelle, myself, Christina, Justin, we can come sit with you and look at your system and answer your questions individually. Like maybe you didn't feel comfortable raising your hand and talking in front of the class. I'm happy to come sit with you all and take a look at what you have and what you're doing, answer any questions that you might have individually.
Thank you.